Alexander Marquardt is there right in the middle of all of this. He's joining us on the phone right now. So, Alex, explain what you're seeing and what you're hearing. How worried are the folks where you are?
Well, they're not worried. In fact, Wolf, they're certainly energized. We're on the western side of the Capitol, right where the inauguration is going to take place in 2 weeks. And there's been a significant escalation in just the last few moments. The protesters had been relatively peaceful and held at bay by a police line. In the last few minutes, they have broken through that police line. I am watching as we speak throngs of protesters climbing the steps on the western side of the Capitol. They have reached up onto the terrace of the Capitol. I can see at least half a dozen protesters scaling, literally climbing the walls of the Capitol to get up to where their fellow protesters are. In response, the police have fired tear gas. We've had several rounds of tear gas that have had protesters choking and their eyes streaming. Wolf, it is hard to say what the police presence is out here. I cannot see any sort of law enforcement. Right now, everything I'm seeing is protesters getting onto the grounds of the Capitol with very little pushback from law enforcement. Wolf?
Yeah, and we anticipated something like this could happen. That's why the mayor of Washington, D.C. asked that the D.C. National Guard be activated. But what I hear you saying, Alex, is you don't see Capitol Police, you don't see military, National Guard on the scene right now, but you see a lot of protesters going through, breaching Capitol Hill steps, getting to areas where clearly they're breaking the law. Do they understand they potentially could be arrested, sent to jail for what they're doing?
I assume they certainly do, but that they don't care at all. There had been law enforcement, including what I imagine to be park police up there. They are no longer here. There are different movements, it seems, within this group of protesters. There had been some who wanted to protest peacefully, who were asking others to leave this side of the Capitol to go to another side to carry out a peaceful protest. But in just the past few moments, there has been a lot of momentum within this protest, with people calling for their fellow protesters and activists to essentially storm the Capitol, to get up those steps. And right now, Wolf, what I'm looking at are scores of protesters up on the terrace of the Capitol where this inauguration is going to take place, holding all sorts of flags, Trump flags, American flags, Don't Tread on Me flags. The people that I'm looking at here appear to feel like they do have the upper hand, and I'm not seeing any sort of sign of law enforcement right now from where I am, Wolf.
Well, that's not good at all. Stand by. Phil Mattingly is up on Capitol Hill. You're watching what's going on. Phil, you've covered Capitol Hill for a long time. What are you seeing?
Yeah, Wolf, I think let's start from the basics of what the Capitol Police were trying to do going into this day and what they do for most big events. They set up a security perimeter of fences about 100, 150 feet away from the actual building itself. The general public is not allowed in there. You're not allowed through there unless you have a pass. Those barricades have been completely busted through at this point. There's thousands of people now that have gone through those barricades. The Capitol Police, based on where I am across the street, watching this transpire, the Capitol Police have basically backed off closer into the building to try and circle the perimeter of the Capitol building itself. The bigger issue right now, it would appear, is the number of protesters, and they are clearly in the hundreds, who have now climbed up the steps of the Capitol building. This is an area that general public is never allowed on, even in normal days, certainly not a day like today. They've essentially overtaken the front of the Capitol, and not just hundreds of people having climbed onto the Capitol building and up the steps of the Capitol building itself, the center steps of the Capitol, but also thousands more on the ground waiting there. So the word we've gotten right now is essentially from Capitol Police, the Capitol building itself is shut down. It's locked down. Nobody's leaving the building. But I think the bigger question right now is this is an overwhelming number of people for the Capitol Police and for what they're prepared for. And, Wolf, you know this as well as anybody. There's been no shortage of huge events and very large protests in Washington, D.C. that come around the Capitol, that are near the Capitol, that are focused on the Capitol. And I've just simply never seen anything like this, not just the breaching of the barricades, but the actual climbing onto the Capitol building in the pavilion itself. They are not physically inside the building, but they are standing right at the doors from the center steps to get into the building right now. So obviously a lot of concern internally between Capitol Police, between staff around here in terms of what's going to happen next and what the actual goals are, Wolf.
Yeah, I've covered a lot of huge demonstrations in Washington, D.C., especially around Capitol Hill. I haven't seen anything like this. John King, you've covered a lot of these as well. This is pretty dangerous when you see these protesters going through a barricade, getting inside this area, and you got the Vice President of the United States, you got the leadership in the House and the Senate. They're debating these articles right now, and all of a sudden, we see this going on.
It's a scary scene, plain and simple. It is a scary scene, and every American has the right to protest, even if what they're protesting is a fantasy, meaning that the President of the United States won the election. He did not. But as Phil was noting and Manu was noting, the President of the United States, encouraged these protesters, and at one point said he might go with them. He has said that before and not actually shown up for the demonstrations. But, Wolf, there's a line, and it's not a fine line. There's a clear line between activism and anarchy. They are on federal property. The United States Congress is meeting inside those doors. They have every right to be around the grounds and to demonstrate and to make their voices heard, but scaling the stairs, going past the barricades, you're right. They are now trespassing. And to Phil's point, the Capitol Police, there's simply not enough of them. They do not anticipate moments like this. They would have help from the Metropolitan Police, from federal authorities for big events like the inauguration at the Capitol, for the State of the Union at the Capitol. Clearly, they did not anticipate this materializing at the scale it is right now. And so what have they done? The Capitol Police have pulled back and essentially, battened the hatches there and to protect the members of Congress inside. It's quite remarkable if you think about the power center of the United States government that is inside that building, the Vice President of the United States, the Speaker of the House, the future Vice President of the United States, the House of Representatives, the United States Senate, all inside there. And again, these are supporters of the president. He lost the election. They have every right to be mad and upset about that, but they do not have the right to trespass on federal property and to have threats. Now, there's often conflicting information in situations like this, but Congresswoman Elaine Luria of Virginia, a Democrat, tweeted a short time ago, "I just had to evacuate my office because of a pipe bomb reported outside. Supporters of the president are trying to force their way into the Capitol, and I can hear what sounds like multiple gunshots." Now, again, I want to be clear. When you have a chaotic situation like this, there's often conflicting information about what actually happened. We'll explore whether there are such threats. But clearly, members of Congress are among those who feel unsafe right now.
All right, let's go to Manu Raju right now. He's getting more information. Manu, what are you learning?
Now, we have been told and there have been spotted protesters are inside the Capitol building. There are scores of protesters, we're told. I'm not sure exactly how many, but there have been witnessed they're outside the Senate, just off the Senate floor, on the second floor of the Capitol. Now, there's just an alert that just went out to all congressional staff, as well as everybody in the Capitol building, urging people to move inside their office, their nearest office, telling them to take emergency equipment with them, stay away from external doors and windows. It says if you're in a public space, find a place to hide or seek cover, remain quiet, silence electronics. It said once you're in a safe location, make sure you tell your superiors about that. It said no one will be permitted to enter or exit the Capitol building until directed by the U.S. Capitol Police. This alert also says if you are in a building outside of the affected area, remain clear of the police activity and await further direction. Wolf, this is something I have never seen in my time covering Capitol Hill, that protesters have actually breached not just the building, but have come inside the building, and just steps from where U.S. senators have been debating on the Senate floor. From the pictures that we're seeing, that there are actually protesters just off the Senate floor, on the second floor of the United States Capitol. So clearly the police
Hold
are
on
trying
a
to get
second,
hold of
Manu,
the
because
situation.
I know Brian Todd is at this area where we see police now showing up. What are you seeing, Brian?
Right, Wolf. You just saw a large number of police officers, as you see on the steps there. They have now taken the steps where some protesters are on these steps that you're seeing. And I'm going to have our photojournalist Christine pan over there. All right, we just heard a concussive blast come from there. We've been hearing flashbangs every few minutes for the last hour, both on this side, this is the east side of the Capitol, and on the west side of the Capitol. On the west side, it's also very, very tense because we saw people there climbing up on risers that were built for the inauguration and breaching police lines there. You can clearly see where they breached the police line here. They got all the way up the steps, they got to the balcony up there, but police have just come from the Independence Avenue side behind us here and have started to enter the plaza. Now, the question is, how long are they going to let these people stay up there and do what they're doing? you know, it is an incredible scene. I've heard you and Manu and John talking about. We've never seen anything like this before. We've never seen a breach where protesters have gotten that close to the building. And I can tell you on the west side of the Capitol, Wolf, it was very, very tense as well. The crowd is bigger on the west side because they were able to kind of receive people in that open space there from the ellipse. But there were a lot of concussive blasts, a lot of flashbangs, a lot of tension there, and lines were breached there as well. So the real question, as we see this kind of tension boiling here, is, you know, are there going to be massive police reinforcements coming, and how long they're going to let this go on, Wolf?